Jeff, I will run past and get the 200 television. That's.
We have immediate seating down front for you. We saved it for you, of course. All good? You're back? Alrighty, good evening. Welcome once again to Claremont's, Active Claremont's monthly presentation. We try to put a talker on each month and bring to the community some, let's say, ultra valuable information, and tonight's no exception. Tonight we have well, it's got a bio on it, so I'm cheating a little bit. Tonight we have Kimberly Morales-Johnson. She is the tribal secretary and enrolled member of the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians. Did I get it right? All right, nice. She is a genuine descendant and has been active in Native American politics and culture, maintaining her family traditions all of her life. Her father served as tribal chairman and was one of the first to serve as the Native American monitor for the state of California. Wow. She and her family have been featured in documentaries and several books regarding the Native people of the Los Angeles Basin. Tonight she's going to talk about the Tongva tribe, some of the heritage and many, many artifacts. And I just want you to give a big round of applause and welcome to maybe the microphone, or maybe she'll do it on her own. Kimberly Johnson. Kimberly, it's up to you.
I'm gonna just try and talk. Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay. I used to teach, so I'm used to, and I kind of miss it. Kind of miss yelling at folks. Just kidding. Miha, Netwat Yane Kimberly Morales-Johnson. I am Gabrielino Tongva from the San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians. I'm also currently a PhD student in Native American Studies at UC Davis. Mm-hmm. I was a teacher for many, many years, and I got stuck on Zoom during the pandemic. We had two elders who passed. A lot of people were familiar with their work, Julia Bogany and Barbara Drake. And when they passed, I had this feeling, because I had worked with them for so long, that a lot of their work was going to be passed down to me. And so I thought, if I'm going to do this, I want the letters behind my name. And I don't want people to question my knowledge. And so at 15 years old, I got an apartment in Davis, and I went back to school, and I moved back last August. Wow. And so, thank you. It's been a challenge. I start my qualifying exams in the month of April, so if you're a prayer or a good vibe person, I appreciate that the whole month of April, because it will be challenging, to say the least. I am going to go into culture, because that is what I am most comfortable about. And I want you all to know that Claremont is on Tongva land. There was a village here. Our tribal territory was Malibu. Malibu was kind of intertribal with the Chumash and Fernandino, all the way along the coastline down to about Laguna Beach, Aliso Creek, inland as far as Corona, and including Riverside, Santa Ana River. So you kind of have to think of natural borders that would have been there, and that is our tribal territory. So when you think about Claremont, why would we have lived here? Anybody want? What do you need to survive, and why would we have settled in an area like Claremont?
Fish.
Game.
Fish.
Game.
Water.
Fish. Water was here. Water, I was just told by a Kauai elder, water went all the way around along the Route 66. There were springs that went all the way across, and they capped them. There is still one active spring. It's in Santa Monica, called Cutabugna Springs. It's right behind Uni High School, which is on that side of the 405 freeway. Mm-hmm. It gives about 55,000 gallons of fresh water in a 24-hour period. And right now that water goes to watershed.
Wow.
There are still springs in this area. I was up on Pomelo Trail, and I'm not 100% certain, but I'm sure that there is a couple springs, and there's definitely a seep there. Cal Poly Pomona has a seep, and back of the president's house, there's actually a waterfall. It's natural, it's spring water. And when they tested the water at Cutavangna, it is pristine. UCLA came in and brought in their hydrologist, and they're constantly testing that water. It is pristine water. And so Claremont had part of that, and now Pudding Stone is that watershed where it just kind of stays there. But that was the natural waterway through this area. I always tell people, think about Los Angeles, that if you could go up to the top of Mount Baldy and pretend it's a clear day, look out and pretend there's no houses and no concrete and no freeways, and think about just the topography of the land. And when you look at those valleys and those areas where water probably came through, that is most likely our village sites. I also recently found out that Pasadena made their city lines in the shape of a U. Did you know this? Because it encompassed the Arroyo Seco on one side and Eaton Canyon on the other. So they wanted to make sure to capture those water rights from both of those areas. It was all about water. That was the game back then, and it seems like it's the game right now, right?
Yep.
It's water. Yep, people need water. And I'm also in close relations with the Bishop Paiute people, and have talked with them a lot about their ecology of their land has completely been devastated because of Mulholland and the whole aqueduct. It's just devastated them, and they are still trying to, they just live in, there's extreme poverty up there due to the loss of the water, and we still are stealing, I feel. It was an illegal purchase, and we're still stealing their water to today. So, anyway. So how did we live here, and what did we have? We had a ton of reeds. We had a ton of plants. Plants were medicine. Plants were musical instruments. Plants were tools. Plants were woven into things like baskets that were used to process food. Trees were bent. People think about how did we cook. We actually put a hot rock here, and we would cook with the hot rock in the basket. So there were a lot of things that we did. We made games. We are not just all casino after the money. We actually made games out of black walnuts. That there still is Walnut Grove Avenue in San Gabriel, right next to the mission. And so, and this is kind of fun. I'm gonna pass these around. I'm gonna give you two. And there's this really thick black stuff in there. And I want you to kind of, I'm more of an interactive person. What do you think that is? I told you the outside is black walnut.
Is it some kind of clay?
This one is, but
I'm
what
sorry.
would have been
I mean,
traditionally?
this one.
The black or the glitter?
The black.
The black, not clay.
This one is clay, but we didn't have black clay
Oh.
traditionally.
Okay.
What would we have had access to that was black and thick?
Tar.
Tar from,
The
La Brea
tar pits.
yep. So our boats, we had plank canoes because we, for puberty rights, would go out to Catalina Island. We had the 4 southern channel islands, and those plank canoes were sealed with black tar pitch as well as pine pitch because it was so thick and it made it waterproof.
Wow.
And so we used, I was just reading something that said that we considered ourselves one with nature. So we knew exactly what could be used for what tool, what medicine, our housing, our clothing, and that's how we lived in relation with Mother Earth. I am going to pass these around because we are all Claremont residents. I live in Claremont, and I'm going to have you guess what these plants are because they are actually around in this area. Feel free to pass it. Any guesses? Careful of the little fuzzy one on that one. That one might stick you. Plants we see.
Some kind of reed.
That one is, these are not reeds.
Bamboo.
You're close.
What did you say?
Said palm.
Nice.
This one grows on Indian Hill Boulevard
Oh.
in the center.
Thistle?
Like yucca or something?
That one is yucca. Yeah. Yeah. So yucca is the basis of our basket, and that is shredded down to this, and it's the start of the basket. How about that one? Any guesses?
What this is?
Yeah.
Is it a grass?
It is a grass.
This looks like weed.
It's a bunch grass called deer grass. And like I said, it's all up Indian Hill. There's these big kind of bushes and there's these straight reeds that come out of it, and it is deer grass. I would never pick that deer grass to put it in a basket, ever, ever, ever. Does anybody want to guess why?
They're prickly.
Poison.
They fall apart.
What's that? No, I can do with that because I do pick it, but just not along Indian Hill Boulevard
Oh, because of the cars,
because of cars and the
the
pollution.
pollution.
So there are basket weavers who have had been diagnosed with cancer of the mouth because we
Put
do
it in
use
their
our
mouth.
mouth as a third hand, and so the pollutants in the air, they definitely poison our plants, all of them. So I think it's great that we have as many native plants in Claremont that we have, but they're not really suitable for ingesting or for using them just because of the pollution that's in the air. Yeah.
No sucking.
Refrain.
These are musical instruments. Anyone want to guess what this part is? You covered.
Gourd.
Gourds. So gourds would have been grown all over. These are what the bird singers use. So the story with bird songs, and we do have some, is that we believe that the birds carried the songs from tribe to tribe. So there are songs that we have in our language, and our language is most related to the Cahuilla Indians and the Luiseño Indians, same family, Uto-Aztecan, compared to Chumash. Need to clarify 100%. Chumash were not in Los Angeles City. They were barely in LA County because of the Malibu area and back there. But I'm currently working with LA City on their historical context statement. And the Chumash are like, we were in LA. No, you were in a completely different language group. You were up in Santa Barbara, all the way north to San Luis Obispo. You had no need to come to LA. There was no relation. Like I said, we were more likely to be in relation with the Luiseños, with Pachanga, with Morongo, with Serrano, all of those tribes than we were the northern tribes. But unfortunately, because we had 3 waves of genocide that came through California for Indian people. The first wave being the missions, the second wave being the Mexican government, and the third wave being the US government. So my family stayed near the San Gabriel mission, and that's how we know so much history. My dad just did our genealogy again, and so 10 generations back, my great-grandfather was baptized in 1774 in a village known as Juyubet, and we just stayed near the mission. And so people ask me, am I still a practicing Catholic? And I say that's a complicated relationship. And I leave it there. If everybody else can be in a complicated relationship, I can too, right? So I will leave that there. What a lot of people don't know is that so my family had a Mexican land grant, which is now called Whittier Narrows Park. And so I'm going to be writing about that for my dissertation because we have the documents and we have the letter from, I think it was President Hoover, that confirmed that we did have a land allotment, but it was tied up in courts until about 1953. After the Mexican government came through, gave some Mexican land grants, the next wave of genocide was the US government. And in 1852, Governor Bigler put a bounty on the heads of California Indian people. and you would make about $17 per head. And so at that time, in 2 years, the US government paid the state of California, the militias, about $2 million for California, the deaths of California Indian people. And so when people start talking about militias and volunteers, I don't know if they always understand the history that California has had with militias and the history of what happened. We in the state had these.
That in fourth grade.
No, they really don't. Because in my opinion, and what I've been trying to argue is missions don't really belong in fourth grade. Missions really belong in high school and college.
Right.
And California state history, because it really is ugly,
It's ugly.
it's really older kids that need to know about this. It's not
Right.
necessarily fourth graders.
Right.
And I taught fourth grade. So I know what I covered and what I didn't cover.
Right.
Just for the sake, because I don't think that kids need to be embarrassed of our history. I think they need to learn from our history. I think that we all need to have those critical thinking skills to say, this is good, this is bad, this is equality, and this is how we can move forward together as a people, because it speaks to humanity, not race, which is what has happened unfortunately so much in our country. That's just my own opinion.
Good.
Yeah, thank you. So my gambling tools, I want to go through this really quick because I think it's so fun, because I'm still a fourth grade teacher at heart. Any guess at this?
Fires?
Not fire. I know, everybody wants to say fire.
Sailboat.
Dividing rod.
Okay,
Spinning top.
ready?
Oh.
Drill.
A drill.
A
Yeah.
Wow.
So the tip would have been made out of this. Any geologists know?
Obsidian.
Obsidian, hardest rock. Because I always tell the kids, we just went to Home Depot, right? Think about it, and then they have to start thinking, well, no. So you have to go out in nature. What can you get? So this would have been obsidian. This would have been soapstone, which is the softest rock mined in Catalina. Catalina still has soapstone to this day, as well as Grass Valley in Northern California. So we traded that soapstone just because it was so soft. And then the rope would have been
Deer skin.
Sisal.
Yucca.
deer gut,
Dear God.
sinew.
Oh,
Mhm,
wow.
mhm. But we did make rope out of dog bane. We made rope out of this wonderful plant here. We made a lot out of this plant, and this has seen better days, and I'm sorry, but this is just kind of how it goes. Have you ever seen this one? It's native to California. It's spongy in the middle. It soaks about 10 times its weight in water. Any plant people? It's spongy in the middle. There's a river named after it. And a tribe.
Is it in the water?
It is a water reed. Mhm.
Okay.
It grows on pudding stone. I've been stopped by the Parks and Rec in the county for gathering it.
Cattail?
No, it's not. Cattail actually doesn't have the spongy inside. Mhm.
And why were you stopped for gathering it?
Oh, because it's illegal for me to gather the plant.
Why?
Because it was county property. It's a long story.
Sounds like a long, good story.
Oh yeah, it's a good story. I'm a little bit of a rebel when it comes to some of those
Good.
things. Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
you speak what you think.
This is tule. Tule.
Really?
This was used for mats. This was used to thatch our huts. This is used to make dolls. It was also bundled to make boats
Oh.
because it can float so well. And they still have Tule boat races up in Northern California.
Wow.
And so it's a lot of fun to work with Tule. We did make baskets out of this as well.
And
So
it's lightweight.
it's very lightweight when it dries, and it does grow. I think this was gathered in pudding stone. The other time I gathered it, my daughter was about 6 years old, and we went out to Santa Ana River, And we were told by the person who was in charge there, you can use it, just don't put it in your mouth.
Oh.
Because at the time, and this was, well, she's 28 now, so about 20 years ago, the Santa Ana River had tested positive for HIV, hepatitis, like it was a list of 5 or 6 different waterborne pathogens. And so do not use this plant in anything it was like you can touch it, but don't stick it in your mouth, don't cook with it, don't do much with it, make sure you wash your hands when you're done with it.
Wow.
Again, pollution, waterways that are polluted. So how do you go about protecting your culture and going on when humans have interacted the way that they have with what we consider Mother Earth that gives us so much. So knowing some of these things while I was growing up, I had a lot of decisions to make and what I was going to do. And so in around 2001, 2002, I was asked to become a Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commissioner. And so I served on the commission, and a young man came to our commission meeting and said, I need to let you know that there is a site in north of LAX, and they have found so far 76 Tongva people there that are buried there, and they're not stopping. At the time, the state of California had a law, it was a CEQA law, that said if you're a developer and you're starting to develop and you come across 6 bodies, it's constituted a burial ground, it's a cemetery, unless the bones you come across are older than 200 years old.
Oh, goodness.
If they're older than 200 years old, they're no longer considered human, they're antiquated. So at that time, they removed over 800 of our ancestors to put in a drainage ditch, which is now a baseball park and a big area called Playa Vista. So it's still there. But at the time, I was kind of traumatized because I went and I couldn't. They were saying you have to meet with Villaraigosa, you have to meet with Rocky Delgadillo, and to be honest with you, I was in a personal space of I had 2 young kids and I was married to a firefighter, and that was my goal in life, is to be a preschool teacher and raise 2 kids and stay married. That was it. That's all I wanted. But I went back to school, and I knew that I needed the language to be able to speak to these politicians at the level so that they could understand the atrocity that was happening. So that was my first time back to school, and I became a teacher. Then I got laid off in 2009 with all of that housing thing, and I went back to school to get my master's in public health. So I worked out at Indian Health Services and helped with diabetes prevention and learned a lot then, but there's a lot about Indian health that is good and there's a lot that's bad. So I left and I went back to the classroom, and then I ended up where I am now as a PhD student in Native American Studies. When I went back to school, there was a woman around the same time, I think it was 2000, maybe a little bit earlier, 2017, 2018, who went to the Democratic National Convention. She heard a new term called land back, and she said, what does this mean? I need to do more investigation. She had inherited 7 homes in her lifetime. She came from wealth. There was one home in Altadena that had a significant spot that her grandmother told her she believed was remnants of the Tongva people. So she did some research and did what rich people do and called people and found a Gabrielino Tongva person in Arizona who contacted Barbara Drake in Ranch Cucamonga. And Barbara Drake contacted me and Wallace Cleaves, and Barbara came to us and said, this woman has a house in Altadena, she wants to donate it, and I want you 2 to do this. So Wallace and I met with her, and I'm still teaching, and we figured out how to do a land transfer donation and formed a 501c3 with a book called How to Form a 501c3 in the state of California. And we did it. And so our conservancy closed escrow on this house in 2022. It backs up to Eaton Canyon. The house was built in 1932. we have removed 44 tons of colonial junk. Hoard. Rat-infested, old 1970s junk. We have had cleanup days, we've had people from the community come out, we've had, the most beautiful part of it is the healing. My parents, my grandparents, my cousins don't necessarily talk to all tribal members, but those tribal members we invited to the land, other tribal groups. The kids came together, the kids are working to move the junk, and the kids are out there singing our ancestor song. And so the space in Altadena is for healing. And what I tell people is, you can come to our space, leave your politics on Altadena Boulevard, do not bring it into the space. This space is for healing and for our community to come back together. Because unfortunately, when you suffer from 3 waves of colonization, it's almost, John Mohawk says, it's like you have a bunch of hungry dogs, and hungry dogs will devour each other trying to get a morsel of good meat. And that's what we have in our community. So how do we heal that? Well, we make a space available for everybody. We offer food, we offer song, we offer goodwill and wishes. And so I am so proud of the work we've done, because we are currently at 5 employees for the Conservancy. And we are right now, well, we just got a $700,000 grant, and so we were able to remove all of the 99 eucalyptus trees on the land. We have more work to do, and so we are currently working on a $2.1 million grant to rehab the space and make it a space available for our community to come together for ceremony. So when the US government came in, they outlawed certain things. Ceremony was a big one. Cultural burns and fire. So when we see wildfires come through, Native Americans did not have that. Why? Because we were culturally burning. So I have taken the time to get to know, what does cultural burning mean? It means that you go through and you basically manicure your landscape. And when you see a tree that needs to be trimmed, you bring it down and you burn it at a lower temperature in a controlled environment, and you mix that ash in with the earth, and the next year the plants come up even more beautiful because the ash changes the acidity of the soil. And so bringing some of those practices back to Southern California. Northern California, they're doing it no problem. The missions stopped somewhere around San Francisco, and they say it's because the Indian community jokes it's because the Northern California Indians were a little bit more crazy than the Southern California Indians. It's because of their weather up there. But we're learning from them, and we're trying to bring that back. And so that's where I think the blessing is that my husband is a retired LA County fireman, because we're able to have these conversations with the county department and with CAL FIRE to talk about how do we do this so that we don't have major fires that burn through areas at such a high temperature that it devastates complete ecosystems. I mean, plants will be gone that we'll never see again because of the intensity of wildfires. But if we can bring some of these smaller practices back, I think that we have a better way of controlling climate and controlling the wildfire. I also am really big in talking to the city about releasing the LA River from the concrete. The Army Corps of Engineers thought it would be a really great idea to concrete that whole thing. And now they're learning that actually the land would have been better off without the concrete. Imagine that. So having those conversations, you know, there are two entities can move the LA River and the flow. The Native Americans are not one of them. It's the Army Corps of Engineers and a woman who comes from the Annenberg family. She's very, very rich. Very, 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 very rich. And those are the two entities that can move the trajectory of how the river flows.
Wonderful.
So
Who talked him into it?
I think money.
But who talked him into using the money?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
We're constantly in conversation with them. Yeah.
Right.
And right now, the LA River seems to be a big thing. There's 8 nonprofits associated with the LA River. Cracks me up because 30 years ago, nobody had any. I mean, we all knew it because Grease was filmed there, right? Like it was, and other movies. I mean, we knew because we would go up more north of that, you know, where it came from, and we had the stories that came through. But yeah, the LA River is very, very significant, as well as Cutabagna Springs, as well as Azusa. I will tell you some Tongva words. Does anybody know any? You think you know any? Because you've said them. You've all said them. No? The city past Upland,
Cucamonga.
Cucamonga.
Whoa.
Okay, now think about that NGA. Any other word that has NGA at the end?
Topanga.
Topanga.
Cahuenga.
Cahuenga. Good. Azusa, it was Asusanga at one time. Azusa is. Yep. All those cities, there were remnants of us.
Wow.
I try to give people the visual of a quilt. Colonization came in and kind of ripped up the quilt squares and kind of tore up the stitches. And so now we have a lot of historical societies that have our artifacts. And when they found out that we had the conservancy, they started to give them back to us. And so there's a guy in Georgia who wants to fly me out and have me drive back home because he said that he has a whole collection that his grandfather took from the islands.
Wow.
Wow.
So the islands were a great spot for pot hunters to come and grave robbers. And at one time, Catalina had a museum with ancestors set up to welcome you. Bones of skeletons just welcoming you into this space. So it's always been in Southern California. There was a science teacher at Uni High that took his high school students out in the back where the springs were to do a real live archaeological dig. And you think about those things nowadays, and our ancestors were put there for a reason, and our artifacts were left there for a reason, and it's not necessarily any person other than the tribe to understand the meaning of those items or those ancestors and where they deserve a final resting place. If you think about your parents and your grandparents and all that they've probably endured, you would want them, once they were buried, to stay where they were. That's the same thing that we want. It's the same thing that you would want. We don't want anybody to be unearthed and then put on display, unearthed and studied for scientific purposes. That's not something that we ever really agreed to. That's something that was imposed upon us. So,
Even for science?
what's that?
Even for science?
Even for science.
Why is that?
Because it goes against our original instructions. Our original instructions are to care for things the way that, like our plants and animals, the way that we care for family, and they'll care for you. So I was taught as a little girl, don't ever worry about disease because Creator gave us a plant to care for every disease on the earth. And if you care for Mother Earth, she will take care of you. So when P22 was hit, they automatically took him down to San Diego and they took samples from him, and we said, that's wrong, it's wrong. But they took, I think, 1 or 2 hairs, so we kind of settled. And then we actually had to bury him in an undisclosed location because they were so afraid of people digging him up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lot
Right
of
now,
respect.
yeah, out of respect for his life.
Right.
Right now I'm working with Cal Academy. The California state flag, the bear, his name is Monarch. He was captured right here in the San Gabriel Mountains. He was a grizzly bear because we had grizzlies at the time.
Wow.
His bones are at Berkeley. His pelt is at the Cal Academy Museum.
Yeah.
So we are talking to them about not putting him on display. Let's celebrate him in a different way and his life in a different way. But they have a lot of newspaper accounts of, I think it was like a Kit Carson looking guy with the big rifle out there with the big hat. look at me killing this grizzly. And now the grizzlies are all gone.
Oh.
Not that we want them back because they're scary, but and there's too many people. But they wiped out a complete
That's bad.
species. The other thing that's going on right now that I think is interesting is Catalina Island. They shipped hogs there. Did you know this in the 20s and 30s? And then they had a big mass. You could pay money to go and stay on the island and hunt the hogs. Then they did the same thing with the deer. And now the deer are running rampant throughout Catalina, and the people that live in Avalon are very angry because the deer are eating their pretty flowers. And so they called us, and so we have this Zoom call with about 12 tribal folks, and they're like, well, the deer and the people, and here's our PowerPoint, and this is the best way that we know how to eradicate the deer is we're gonna get helicopters and we're gonna shoot them all, and the meat is not gonna be any good because by the time we move it from the island to the mainland, the meat spoils, and so we're just gonna have to burn them all, and sorry, unless you guys can come up with a better solution. I had to sit for a moment and I kind of had to think about all of that, and I said, okay, so we didn't take the deer there, like as Native people. You put the deer there for your big game sportsmanship, and now you're asking us to solve your problem in a more ethical way that people will agree upon. They did the same thing up at Hat Creek in Northern California. They brought in some big fish for the big game fishermen. They killed out the native species of fish that lived there, and then they said, okay, we're gonna poison them. So then they poisoned the whole creek.
Oh, and then the creek is so poison.
Exactly. So these things are like continually happening. So that's why I'm so happy that city people are here, because y'all need to hear about these. These things happen daily to us. The city of Claremont, though, specifically reached out to Wallace Cleaves and I a few years ago, and so the Claremont Heritage Foundation has a land acknowledgement. The Los Angeles City has a land acknowledgement. I hope the city of Claremont adopts a land acknowledgement. They are going to change the name of Kauai Park because it is historically inaccurate. This is Tongva land, and they're gonna change it to Yoat Park, which is the name that we had for Mount Baldy. And it means the place of snow, I think snowy something, the snowy place maybe? So that's why it's going to be changed to that name. So we are making strides, little bits at a time. We did get that CEQA law that allowed for those ancestors to be removed. Then our tribal chairman worked in 2006 and changed that law. I think it was like AB 2641 back in 2006, and it changed the law. So now the law says if you come across 6 people, doesn't matter the age, it's constituted a cemetery. And so that type of atrocity will no longer happen in the state of California. So between land back and everything else that we're fighting for, it's a give and take. But at the end of the day, I think I feel the work that I do is fulfilling because I see my kids and I see my son and I see their excitement when they're able to go on a hike and notice the food, notice the medicine, and they've been able to give back to Mother Earth the way that she's given to our tribe for so many generations.
Kimberly,
Yes.
the one thing, I have a great appreciation for the Native, I really do. Most of my engagement with them has been in water. They were doing things 200 years ago that we pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to do the same thing today. And I'll say today, but if you went back into the 70s, nitrate was a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
And when you mentioned the tules, that made me think of it, because they actually go out and plant the tules, like in the Delta.
Right.
There's acres and acres of tules.
Mhm.
And the reason is because it sucks up the nitrate, it sucks up the diseases that are in that water in the Delta, and it takes up a lot of it.
Right.
But along with that, as I told you earlier, my biggest connection was the Chumash Indians.
Yeah.
But the Vihas, the Pachanga, Morongo, each one of them had a different process on whatever it was that they were doing. I got familiar with the different tribes down towards San Diego, and some of the things that I learned from them, they're still, like I said, we are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to take care of the same thing they did
Right.
200 years ago.
Yeah.
The good thing is I could say is that, okay, so the property in Altadena, the 99 eucalyptus trees, changed the soil to the same acidity of lemon juice. Nothing can grow there.
Oh.
So my daughter, she was a marine biologist and then scientific illustrator, started working with some plant ecologists. Sunflowers and mushrooms will clean that soil so that we will be able to grow again.
Wow.
So learning that it's coming back.
Good.
I hate to be like, we're coming back, but we're
Yeah.
coming back.
Yeah.
And I truly believe in my heart of hearts, we lived here, so we believe since time immemorial. Creation started on Catalina Island for our people and then crossed over. We lived here for thousands of years. It took the United States 250 years to start climate change and ruin
Yeah.
what we know as Mother Earth.
That.
So if we go back to those original
Yeah.
instructions,
Right.
I think that we have a chance for the
Of
future
course.
generations to come.
Yeah.
Just with the Colorado River
Mhm.
between the Chippewa and the Vihas.
Yeah,
I learned a lot out there. What, again, some of the things that they're doing, whether it be farming
Yeah.
along the river,
yeah,
they're doing things that they were doing 200 years ago
That's
that
right.
they're still paying surveyors to do
that's
today.
right,
And
absolutely.
to try to conserve the water along the river.
Yep.
And so that it's just an interesting phenomenon, I guess,
Yeah.
to get involved with.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is what I was telling you about the Shumash. When we brought the Shumash Indians out here to Claremont, out of the valley, brought them out here, and we wanted them to do a rain dance. And I was not a big believer that they were gonna be able to do it, but they brought 9 guys out here, 3 women, there was 12 of them all together, and they came out. They came up to the district, and it hadn't rained for a month and a half, as I was telling you earlier.
Wow.
Month and a half, no
Yeah.
rain, when we should have been
Yeah.
getting rain. They did their little dance, we had all the lunch for them, and we did all this, and they left that evening. The next morning it rained.
Wow.
I swear to God, it
Yes.
rained in Claremont that time.
Wow.
And I could never figure it out, but
It's
again,
not
I have
for
a
you
lot
to
of
figure
belief
out.
in what they do.
Yeah, there was, I think that it speaks to this relationship
Of course.
with Mother Earth and the prayers and the songs and the like things that the original instructions taught us so that we can live in unison with nature because nature sustained us. And I think that we've gotten so far away from that we're seeing the effects of it, so.
And it's just like we don't have to take drugs to heal.
Right.
Our bodies are self-healing.
Yes.
And we can learn.
Yes,
You are healing the earth, healing people.
yes,
on earth.
absolutely. And being out in nature, I mean, I think the newest research this past summer, we were laughing. Researchers say being out in nature is great for mental health, and we're all going,
Oh.
duh. Yeah. We knew that. You didn't need to pay a big scientist to figure that out. We knew that.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Spread to everybody.
yes.
How many people, when the mission really flourished in this area, is it known, like, how many people were living in the tribes at those times?
So San Gabriel specifically, the fathers, the padres, I think they estimated anywhere from 19 to like 30,000. Then because disease came through so rampantly when they were there, that I think like there was a 2-year period where they said that probably 2,500 just Gabrielino people died just from disease. So when they came, it wasn't just that, it was people were trying to run away and then they would starve because the cattle were eating the plants that we would have eaten. And so there was a lot of reasons why we died so quickly, but a lot of us died within 2 years. Yes.
I think I read somewhere where the mission padres or whatever tried to enslave Native Americans
Oh,
to work, and they just parish, they
Yeah.
would not,
Yeah.
that was, which of course,
Right.
is
Yeah,
part
absolutely.
of their demise, but what's this little mission down here on Pomona? I think it's on Arrow, no, is it Arrow Highway?
Calmar.
Yeah, Palomares.
That's part of the whole Mexican period.
That's all Mexican
Yeah,
then?
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
2 questions. First, at the house you described where you were taking away the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, have you gotten down to the point where the items you're finding are from the original folks?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The original owner was one of the first orthodontists in the area.
Oh, no, I meant the Native Americans that lived there.
Oh, yeah, the fire circle. I can
But
show you.
I
a
mean the
picture.
original folks,
Mhm.
right?
Just the fire circle. We had an archaeologist come out and survey it. And they said that they could not put a time period on it, but they could not rule out the fact that Native Americans probably used it. And so then doing further research, we didn't really live in the Altadena area because there were so many grizzly bears at the time. And so we changed. Well, there's this whole thing that we have to do where we have to reclaim the space as ours, and we had a naming ceremony, and we renamed that spot Huhugna, meaning place of the bear. And the bear comes back to visit us, and we know because there's bear scat. And so the fire circle, I can show you a picture. Yeah,
So
definitely.
you're at the level where it's back to then.
Mm-hmm.
The second question, what would you like to see Claremont do most, other than renaming, to be restorative to your,
Can I go well?
there's a reason I'm asking.
So-
You know, what would you like to see the Claremont community do?
You know that, what is up there? The new parks
Clara.
home, the new homes that are gonna go
Yeah,
there?
Clara Oaks or some
They,
horrible thing.
we were contacted years ago by 2 residents. And we said at that time, put in a interpretive center. We don't have a place to house our artifacts. Put in a place where we can educate kids. We were trying to work with the Claremont colleges at the Robert Redford Conservancy to do that. That did not pan out because I don't know if anybody works for the colleges, but the colleges are the colleges. The city can do a lot here. There's along Thompson Creek Trail, I'd love to see the names of the plants in not just English, but also in the Tongva language. I'd love to see QR codes on some of the plants. I love changing, I'd love to change all the names of all the parks in Claremont to Tongva to the names of Tongva words, because I think that bringing the language back to us means healing the earth. Because if you think about it, what language did Mother Earth hear first? Our language. So the more we speak it, the more she's going to be able to heal.
Could you say something more about the language, how it's been preserved and how much of it and
Sure.
in what ways and?
Sure.
It's the whole, that's a whole.
So yeah, it's a whole thing. We are in the Tokic language, and what happened is the 3 waves of genocide, we spoke our language, Spanish came in, so what I tell people, it kind of turned into like Spanglish, where it's half Spanish, half English, so it was half Gabrielino, half Spanish. But then around, I want to say like 1858, Hugo Reed married Dona Victoria. Hugo Reed started writing letters to the Los Angeles Star, and at that time, that's when J.P. Harrington, who was an amateur anthropologist, came throughout the state of California and literally wrote over 1 million different linguistic notes about languages in the state. He also came through with a wax cylinder recorder, and he recorded language from Fort Tejon, because some of our folks were taken up to Fort Tejon. He recorded songs, words, language, all in the linguistic type of writing that kind of looks like shorthand, and we've been able to reclaim some of it from there. There is an older woman from UCLA that started studying the Tongva language about 20 years ago, and she's helped, she keeps a lot of it, she copyrighted our language, to be honest. So that's a little harsh for us. They did the same thing with the Lakota Sioux language. Their linguists went in and took all of their notes and copyrighted it. So now the tribe has to pay for it. And that's the same thing that this UCLA person has done with us.
Motivation
So
is money.
we have to be careful. We have to be careful with linguists, but we do know where we can reclaim some of that. And we do have the recordings. And as a community, we share those resources because it's so, we're all eager for it.
And I'm just curious, is there a grammar as such that is available and known to your people, or is it mostly just words for things? I mean,
It's
verbs
mostly
or-
word. It's mostly word for things, but we have two linguists right now that are trying to actually go through and write the grammar. We have the phonetic sounds and all of that. It's just a matter of, it's hard to explain, but there are certain word endings that you would put to words, and then some words you would do it as the prefix, and so it just depends on the word and if it's a verb or a noun, and so it's complicated, but we are, and I keep telling our kids, like our youth, we need linguists. But the kids, they're like, linguistics? Not everybody wants to, it takes a special person to study linguistics, so, yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Is there anything known about, specifically about the Indians living right here in Claremont? About the village that was here, anything known?
I
about
have not found anything. I think that Wallace Cleves has found some things specific to this. I know that one of the other major villages was in Pomona at Ganesha, and I know that Ganesha their park found a number of things there, as well as in Laverne. There is an area that they called like mud flats,
Yeah.
and they found a lot of,
Like Hudson,
yeah,
that area.
yeah, they found a lot
Right.
there as well.
Right.
So, but.
That was in Mud Springs.
Yeah, Mud Springs, is that what they called it? Yeah.
Mud flats,
Yeah.
right, yeah. Right.
Didn't part of the high school in Pomona have a cemetery there? Because I remember, there's a small fenced-off area that says Memorial.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
It's-
I also,
It's right above the
question
hospital.
the place right next to the dog park. Isn't there a fenced off area
For
there?
springs.
It's what?
Natural springs.
It's a natural spring. See, I told you. There's water everywhere. Yeah, there's water everywhere. Yeah. So I'm sure some of these things, like, they're just not well documented, to be honest with you. They just are not. And why would they want to? You know, I was just studying for my exams, and I don't know if you're aware of Cliff Trasser is a historian out at UCR, and he wrote about the nurses. So the Indian agent said, oh my gosh, all these Indians in Southern California, they're so sick. Well, the nurses that they would deploy or that they would hire could only go so far, usually Morongo, and that was it. They did not let nurses come to Los Angeles County, Orange County. They didn't let the nurses over here. Why?
Who are they?
The government,
Federal
the federal government. They paid for them to come out, but they did not pay for them to take care of the Native Americans in the Los Angeles basin. There were reasons why. There's reasons why there's spaces that we don't know about, cemeteries we don't know about. They don't want us to know about that. Yeah.
Well, you said you didn't have a place to put your artifacts that you
Mhm.
had. I wonder why the museum here in Claremont, the new one that they have, why you couldn't get a spot there? And if not there, go to the council and see if you can get a spot right here in the community center.
Yeah, we should talk to the council
I
about
would
that.
think, because it's not, you don't need a lot of it. Two of the council here tonight.
Big property.
To be honest, I know, like, Claremont moves slow, right? Like, Los Angeles City is super slow. Claremont's a little slow, but we're getting there. I could see it happening in my lifetime. Can't you?
Sure.
Sure.
Could I ask you another question?
Sure.
I was several times at events at Scripps College.
Mhm.
And those events were opened with a statement about we are on
You're getting close.
Land acknowledgement.
land. Yeah, is that is that something that has been negotiated with them, or how does that come about?
So usually they talk with us, like I said, Claremont Heritage has a land acknowledgement. It's just a moment where in public settings where you take a moment to acknowledge that you are on unceded land. They're controversial sometimes because they seem a little performative, like, okay, well, we're on your land, now what? But what it does is it brings an awareness. And what it does is it takes the focus off of, like, we're so powerful, we're so it. I think that it takes a moment in time for you to say, we're on stolen land. Like, we are on land that probably we shouldn't be on, and we need to humble ourselves. Because I was never taught to take Mother Earth for granted. I was never taught that, like, I see we as a society are very capitalistic and like individuals. We only think about ourselves. I mean, look at the pandemic and the whole toilet paper thing, right? Like, I need more toilet paper, I need more. Our community literally was like calling elders. Can we deliver you toilet paper? Do you need medicine? What do you need? I sent my 19-year-old son to this store multiple times, thinking about the community, our Native community. We don't do that anymore. So I think that land acknowledgements take a moment to say, it's not just about the individual. We're on a territory, on a land that was shared with original people. A community. Yeah.
We're getting close on time.
Sure.
But I wanted to give you the opportunity for a little bit of shameless self-promotion. And I mean that genuinely.
Of course.
For the folks of us here who would like to talk to you some more, contact you, learn more, maybe see you again sometime, wherever else you may be. And I don't mean in a bad way, period, but speaking.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Talk to Sam Pedrosa. No, just kidding. I've known Sam for many, many years. Our website.
That's your fault.
He's a great guy. The website for the Conservancy is fairly easy. It's tongva.land. The one for the tribe is a little bit more difficult. It's like gabrielino-nsn.us. I have, until after my qualifying exams, this is it for speaking. There's no more. I'm closing up shop because I've got to really. It's hard for me to say no, but at the same time, Cliff Trapser said, Kimberly, if you don't finish your degree because you're too busy speaking to groups, you're going to do more of a detriment to your community than if you don't have that degree. You need your degree. In the long run, it's going to do more benefits for your community than speaking at these little events. And so I've taken that to heart. But I would do tongva.land, and then if there's an email like info@tongva.land. I'm Kimberly at tongva.land is my email. But they will contact me, and then, yeah, we can go from there. I think we're going to be changing the name of the park. Do you guys know any information about that, City Council folks? It's coming up. We're changing the name of the park soon. We're going to have a little
What park?
ceremony.
Which one?
Kauia.
Yeah.
Oh, the one by the school, the high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a school. What name was that? I thought that was an Indian name.
Kauia is the name of the tribe of Morongo, Santa Rosa, Anza.
But
We're
that's
changing
not-
it to a Tongva word, Yoat,
Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of a, what name?
Kauia, which is the tribe east of us. Mhm.
Would you spell
Got it.
the,
The new name?
no, your name, to, the Conga.land? Spell it all, how we can get in touch with you?
Sure, it's Kimberly, and I, Kimberly, at Tongva, TONGVA, .land.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
I think that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
of all, thank you all
Great
for
job.
coming. We had a good turnout. We are going to do better to get our meetings front and center into the Courier, so in the future, there'll be more. Tell a friend. Second, again, thank you, Kimberly.
course.
And maybe next year, or whenever you're done with your degree, you can come back.
I love this, I only had to drive 2 blocks.
Or just go to your house. And Bill, who's it next month? It's Carrie.
Yes,
Carrie Dillon, yeah.
Carrie Dillon,
About the urban forest.
yes.
correct? And there's a hand up? Yes, sir.
I found it from our State of the City. It will be in May that we'll be holding a renaming ceremony for Fort McKee Park.
Okay, there you go. You'll be joining us?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so unless there are questions or other housekeeping items? meeting is
I'm
adjourned.
here if anybody would like to pay their dues.
Oh, I thought that's what you were doing already up there. All right, so there we go. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Courier.